Blue Banter. What is up, everybody, and welcome to a beautiful Wednesday night. It is June. I almost said January. Thank God it's not January. It is June 5th, Wednesday night. It's not, the weather's not beautiful here, but the news we're going to have tonight is, however. And joining me tonight is my buddy Eric Summers. You've had him on the show before here. Eric, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Trip. Hope you're doing all right.
Making it, man, making it. I'm doing a lot better right now after the news on Monday, that's for sure.
Oh, without doubt, man. What a signing.
Yeah.
What a signing.
No kidding. We're going to jump right into that. But first, I got to read off some, I'm part of the Armchair All-American Podcast Network now here over at Black and Blue Banter. And we got some sponsors and stuff I got to read off. We got My Bookie. Since we started the show, well, not since I started the show, but not too long after, I've talked to people. We do over and unders on, season win totals and different games in this. Billy and I do it for pre-game reviews and stuff like that and post-game. But apparently, I'm always wrong, so you don't want to ask me. But mybookie.ag, between your live in-game betting, endless props, and fantasy sports wagers, there's something for everyone with the best player perks in the sports book business. They've been good to us, and we know they'll be good to you. They're hooking our listeners up all month with promo code ACAA when creating your account to claim 50% bonus. So if you drop $100, you get $50 on top of it. $200, you get $100, so on and so forth. You get the picture. That's mybookie.ag, promo code ACAA. And then at SeatGeek, these guys they just take the guesswork out of everything. I ain't even gonna have to look at this little cheat sheet. If they got a green dot when you're looking at it, it's a great deal. If they got a yellow dot, it's all right. If they got a red one, you're probably just gonna want to stay away from it unless you're desperate and it's like a playoff time and you've got the extra money to spend. But also the promo code for that is ACAA as well, and you get $20 off your first ticket purchase. And I mean that's like a couple beers at the stadium. That's what I always tell everybody, and I think everybody can use that money at the stadium because we know those things are not cheap. So that's promo code ACAA at SeatGeek.com, off $20 off your first purchase. But yes, so Eric, big signing this week. And we'll just jump right into it here because I think that's why everybody else is tuned in. I mean, I know that's why, we're doing the show this week. Otherwise, news is kind of slow right now, but this is a big one. Gerald McCoy, 1-year deal, was favorites for Baltimore and Cleveland both. A lot of talk was up there how excellent these visits went. And then he comes to Carolina. It was clear Marty HURN and the Panthers were making a strong push once they finally got a visit lined up for him, which honestly, to hear him, I kind of talked about it with Edgar last week. To hear him say that, they wanted to bring him in or they were interested is one thing. Because, I mean, I think you're always interested in a free agent of his caliber that comes available. Making it happen and making the push is another story. Carolina did that after the Baltimore visit, and he left Baltimore without a deal. They got him in the building. He went home, thought about it with his family. We pretty much knew he was going to go home and talk about it with his family, and came back and decided Carolina was the place for him. Eric, how big is this for this defense? I mean, and the three-man front and hybrid stuff, we're talking about moving to.
It is pretty much the biggest thing that we possibly could have done post-draft, and really probably even if he were a regular free agent signing pre-draft. I think there's a lot of evidence right now to suggest that one of the ways to get back to the Super Bowl is to have an overwhelming pass rush. We had it when we went, and the Rams had it last year, and I think right now coaches around the league are looking at what the Rams did and the Patriots, for that matter, as well in the Super Bowl. Dominant defensive interiors, especially. Not even necessarily edge rushers. I mean, edge rushers are always going to be guys that get after a quarterback. But if you have guys who can also disrupt on the interior, you can really mess up a lot of things. So You've already got K'Wan Short. He's one of the best defensive tackles in the league. We know this. Now you bring in Gerald McCoy, who has historically been one of the top defensive tackles in the league. Just so happens that, KK's used to playing on the right, McCoy's used to playing on the left in a 4-3. But it also happens that we happen to have a natural nose tackle in Dontari Poe, and both of them can play the end pieces in a 3-4. So there's just so much versatility that when you bring in a guy like McCoy that you gain, and the amount of talent that he brings to the table, not to mention all the motivational aspects like revenge on the Buccaneers, that dirty guy, Nadamakong Suh, getting his number, all that stuff, man. And, he's not talking about it. He's not playing it up because he's a classy guy. But we all know he's thinking it. He wants that revenge game. I wouldn't be surprised if he puts up 6 sacks between the two games or even more. He's going to be hungry. He's
Absolutely.
going to be real hungry.
Yeah, that's going to be a big one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally shaking right now with anticipation of how good this is for our defense. Quite frankly, I don't care that we don't have a free safety right now. We might not need one.
Exactly. That's the biggest thing right there to me.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about the safety situation, because I know a lot of people are still talking about. I even saw a few people saying, why didn't we just go get a safety? And I'm like, do you realize what this could be with this 3-man front? Like you mentioned, Dontari Poe, he came in last year, and a lot of people weren't really pleased with what he did last year. But you got to remember, he was coming from, he went down to Atlanta, but he was coming from the Chiefs originally, where he had all his success in more of a 3-4 look. And he is, like you said, that natural nose tackle. So I think this could really help him shine. He's going to eat up blockers. And now you have K'Wan Short, like you said, and Gerald McCoy, and just interior pass rushers in general. This could be very fun. You brought up safety. Yeah, the secondary might not have to do a whole lot if you're able to, blitz these linebackers and with this 3-4 front. Not to mention, you're also going to have a lot of nickel fronts coming out of that look as well. So it might be look more like a 3-3-5 at times. But there's going to be so many ways to, disguise blitzes and stuff. And you saw it towards the end of last year when Ron Rivera took play calling over. You have to almost wonder, like, when he got Dontari Poe last year, if he was starting to think about going to more of a 3-4 look before the season started. Now, obviously, he didn't do a whole lot of it early on, but once he took over play calling, it was kind of like, okay, this worked for me back in San Diego. So, we're in a pass league now. I've got to start evolving. My job's on the line, which, we always criticize Rivera at times for waiting until it's too late to make these decisions. But the fact is, he's made them. And right now, I have to be honest. I posted Marty Hurney's off-season stuff he's done this year, and I am frankly shocked.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm shocked. I feel, when we had this discussion before the draft, Eric, talking about who we were going to look at and what we needed, the holes we needed to fill, you joined me on the show, and me and you both were like, there's so many holes to fill, and there still are question marks. There's no doubt about that, but they have really knocked out this offseason so far, in my opinion.
Without a doubt. I mean, it's a different Marty Hurney, or at least it seems like a different Marty Hurney than what we're accustomed to seeing from years past. I mean, who is this guy? Multiple big name free agents, none of which were on a prohibitive contract, in my opinion. The Parada signing is great. Darrell Williams on a cheap deal. Now you've got Gerald McCoy on another sweetheart deal that, it's important. It's a 1-year deal, so it gives us flexibility, but it also is going to give us first crack at him again next year if things work out for us.
Yep.
So, I mean, there are so many reasons. I'm a full believer that if Pro Bowl caliber talent is out there to be acquired, especially at this point in the year, you'd be foolish as a GM not to at least be interested, if not actively make calls and have somebody in for a physical and all that stuff. Guys like Gerald McCoy don't just come available very often.
Yep.
And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, quite frankly, their lack of ability to, run a football team is only going to benefit us here. Because Gerald McCoy has plenty left in the tank. He was the most productive member of that defense last year, and that defense was a dumpster fire, but it wasn't his fault.
It definitely was.
I mean, he was getting after the quarterback just like he always was, but There were so many occasions where 0.1 seconds more, and he would have had another sack. He would have had another knockdown pass. Um, Bruce Arians is blaming the wrong guy, and he's just flat out got it wrong on Gerald McCoy. Gerald McCoy is still a baller, and with K'Wan Short next to him, oh, it's going to be dirty. It's going to be dirty what we do to these quarterbacks, Trip. It's going to be bad.
Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to it, and really that coming from Bruce Arians kind of shocked me. Now I've always kind of liked Arians, but the stuff, the remarks saying about now I'm sure he's watched plenty of tape on the Bucks defense from last year, but it's like you said that whole thing, that whole defense was a dumpster fire. I don't know how he could just single out McCoy, and they went and got Ndamukong Suh, gave him the 93 number like it was no problem, which is kind of whatever. I know Jenna, ESPN beat writer for the Bucks, had came out and said it's no coincidence he signed 3 hours after the jersey number. And McCoy kind of jumped in there and was like, that is absolutely ridiculous. You think I'm going to decide the future team I go to because they gave him my old number? Yeah, I want my number and all that, but that doesn't make my decision on what team I go to. But to clarify the contract, it is a 1-year deal worth up to $10.25 million, $8 million guaranteed, and there are bonuses in here. There are incentives, and I love incentives, Eric. I'm a big incentives guy. I love the fact that Marty has been hitting the incentives since he came back. Marty, HURN 2.0, if you will. And, another big one he did, and I've talked about it before on this show, is with Greg Olson when he was wanting to sign a new contract. They gave him a big incentives deal, after he had 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. And unfortunately, Greg Olson went down and had his first foot injury and missed half the season. And he could have been signed to a huge deal. If JR was here, he probably would have been, if Jerry Richardson was still the owner. But no, they gave him an incentives deal, and I absolutely hate it for Greg. Obviously, we all love him. I would have loved to seen him be able to capitalize on all that stuff. But it panned out to be the right business move. And the incentives here for Gerald McCoy is in 2019, he gets 6 sacks. He has a $500,000 bonus set up. If he gets 8, it's a $1.5 million bonus. And he's the only defensive tackle in the last 6 years to get at least 6 sacks in each of those seasons. So, I mean, I'd say he's looking at a good $500,000 right now. And the guys he's playing beside, he could easily hit that $1.5 million in this 3-4 look defense. I mean, I'm pumped for it. I mean, I just can't. There's nothing else I can say. I'm looking forward to it.
And honestly, I would not be shocked if he sets a new career high for sacks here, to be honest. This is the first time in his entire career that he has been on a competent defense with a consistent defensive-minded coach. One thing in Carolina, we may have our off years every now and then, but our defense has at least always been pretty good. This year, he's going to have the benefit of a true incredible running mate in K'Wan Short. He's going to have some great speed rushers on the edge. He's got the best in the business, Luke Kuechly behind him, telling him what's about to happen. I mean, he's set up for a career year, and that's probably why he knows it. Probably why he took a 1-year deal. He knows that he can still prove it to everybody and get a bigger contract next year. And I would hope if he sets that kind of mark, it would be from us. But we'll just have to see. Point is, I don't think we've seen Gerald McCoy's ceiling yet. I know he's 31, but I don't think we've seen everything he can do. I think we've seen his ability, but he's never, ever, ever been given the proper pieces around him to truly get favorable matchups. He's going to consistently see one-on-one matchups this year in Carolina. That's something he's never enjoyed in his entire career.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And, the other half of it we don't talk about as much because we're mindful of stacking the quarterback right now. But the combination of K'Wan Short and Gerald McCoy instantly is one of the best run-stopping duos in the league as well. K'Wan is extremely highly rated against the run. So is McCoy. Both of them are dangerous off the ball. They move people. They're both capable of moving double teams. We're going to be exceptionally difficult to run inside the tackles on. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I'm a guard-center-guard combination in the NFL and I'm looking across the line and I see K'Wan Short, Gerald McCoy, and Luke Kuechly standing behind him with a hand on one of their hips, I know I'm not converting that 4th and short. It's not going to happen.
I'm over here pinching myself right now. This is just I never would have thought Gerald McCoy was leaving the Bucks ever. I know business is business. We always think about, but Gerald McCoy always seemed to be a guy that was going to be a stalwart there. And another thing people kept talking about was the, he wanted to go to a contender. That's the first thing he said when he hit the market, was he wanted to go to a contender. Obviously, Cleveland was the first name brought up. They had money. They've been signing all these big free agents, and then he went to Baltimore. And a lot of Baltimore fans were like, "Why is he going to Carolina? They're not contending." I'm sitting here like, "But you are." I don't see
Yeah,
how you
wait a
think you're
minute.
a bigger contender than Carolina.
So
Um,
people were talking about Carolina being a contender, but people are not worried about the Browns being a contender. I don't care who they've signed; they're still the Cleveland Browns.
and yeah,
I
yeah, well, you're right, and
I would
everything
put
is on paper.
$500 today on them being a sub 500 team again next season, despite their signing.
Well, yeah, I don't know about that, but I
I
will
would do it.
say, just
I'm a
like the
gambler,
Bucks,
man. You give me good odds on that, I'll lay it down.
hey, I bet we can do it on my bookie. I bet I'm sure there is.
There you go. Let's see what
um,
those guys would give me on a 7-9 or worse record for the Browns this season.
a 7-9 or worse.
Yep.
Mm, I, 7-9. If you said 6-10, I'd probably take you on that. 7-9, I don't know because anything can still happen. I do think the hype around Baker is going to fall a little bit short of how he ended the season. But at the same time, it's like and I know it's all on paper right now, so none of it matters.
Yep.
But you've got Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham. They're going to get open, the two of them at least.
Yep.
And everybody keeps forgetting about David Njoku, and I understand why with Landry and Odell there. But Njoku's a hell of a tight end. He's really started coming on with Baker last year.
I mean, they've got Chubb and they've got all
Yeah.
sorts of guys. I mean, look, the name, everything looks outstanding on paper, but you've got to change the culture.
Yeah.
And people
fair.
underrate that. And like, oh, look at this. Look, they've had some great teams on paper before, not as good as this one, but they have had them in my lifetime. But yet here we are. They haven't had a winning season in forever. And I'm not seeing it in 1 year. I bet you if they come out and lose their first game, it's the sub 500 season, guaranteed.
Well, yeah, and I mean, look, you talk about we talk about on paper. How many years in a row did we hear after Jameis Winston was drafted and the Bucks are going out signing these guys that this team really has what it takes to put it together,
Oh, yeah.
and they went out there and laid an egg every season.
Oh, yeah. Some
Um,
teams, they just have losing in the culture, and it's extremely hard to get rid of. And I like what the Browns are trying to do to get rid of it. They're
yeah,
really going all in for it. But until I see that mindset has changed in Cleveland, I just don't buy it, man. I can't buy it.
that's fair. But and we mentioned that like Gerald McCoy, and of course now he's leaving the Bucks, and I think in a way he's ready to move on past it. I'm sure he loves Tampa and like everything they did for him, drafting him and
Mm-hmm.
and all that. But I think he was ready to just get out of the atmosphere because look, he's got to be excited to be coming to a team that has been going to the playoffs, who's gone to a Super Bowl in the last 3 years, and is going to a defensive minded head coach and guys with Luke Kuechly, like you said, Kawan Short, and then Don Terry Poe, of course. He went and sat down and had dinner with these guys. He loved how they just hit it off and meshed. It's closer to Tampa Bay. It's still warm weather. I know he mentioned that was a big thing, but also Ian Rappaport brought up that he also had double the money on the table, double the guaranteed money on the table elsewhere, and a lot of people were saying, how could he pass up this and that, but something that's not included in that I think is a big deal is they were probably multi-year deals. And
Mm-hmm.
that's something that's not being brought up. And I don't think he wanted to go somewhere for 3 years, if that's what the offer was. I mean, we don't know. It may have been 2 years, but Baltimore, the report was it went excellent. But like we talked about before, yeah, they kind of trended up towards the end of the year. They made the playoffs, but they're not. I don't see them being any more of a contender than we are. Being Cam's healthy, that's a whole nother story. We've been banging that drum all offseason. Um, but I really feel like that multi-year deal kind of stumped them there. And then he came here, meshed with our guys. He knows this defensive players that we have and the talent we have around it. And not to mention, we all know Gerald McCoy is a huge Cam Newton fan. I mean,
Oh,
this
yeah.
guy believes in Cam Newton. I mean, it might be his favorite quarterback in the NFL, the way he talks about him. Every interview he is on when he talks about quarterbacks, I shared the Dan Patrick Show interview where he was asking, Dan Patrick asked him about Baker Mayfield. And he was like, yeah, Baker's a great guy. He's not the same size, obviously, but he reminds me of Cam Newton. And I'm a big Cam Newton fan. He went on and raved about him. And Dan Patrick asked him, said, "You ever just look at Cam and want to tell him to shut up?" And he was like, "No, because this league needs a guy like Cam Newton." Now he's on the same team as him. He even said in his press conference today, said, "Look, you know, I've had to face the best escape artist in the game my whole career since he's came into the league." He said, "Now I get to sit on the sideline and watch other people do it." And I love
Right.
that quote from him. So he believes in Cam. He believes in his team. I'm looking forward to it. And look, just like we've said about every other team, all this is on paper right now. It all sounds great. They have put all the pieces to the puzzle for this new hybrid defense. Drafting Brian Burns, Christian Miller, signing Bruce Irvin. You got Luke Kuechly, you got Shaq Thompson, who's going to be getting a lot more playing time with Thomas Davis gone. And
Hmm.
that's another thing we didn't really talk about with these three guys is Luke Kuechly is going to be able to roam everywhere
Oh yeah.
with those guys.
Luke's got to love this more than anybody, man. I mean, are you kidding me? He's never stood behind two guys this size that are both this athletic, and not to mention experienced, and they know what they're doing. Luke can pretty much set them and forget it, and he can concentrate on making sure that Brian Burns and those younger guys are on the right page. So
Yep.
he's going to enjoy that.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so it's definitely gonna be big. I'm looking forward to camp. I wanna kind of hear more with the pads and stuff and see how things are going. And obviously, being healthy is the biggest key to everything. Um,
Obviously.
we talked about Marty Hurney's off season, so now he made the big decision and finally let go of Matt Khalil. Took a hit, but freed up $7.25 million for the post June 1st designation. Torrey Smith, I think this pay cut for Torrey was inevitable. I think everybody would agree with that. I mean, wouldn't you? I think it was coming
I
sooner or
would. I
later.
mean, production didn't justify the number, and he knew none of it was guaranteed. And he basically, I'm sure he was told, you can either take this pay cut or you can walk, and so he took it.
Yeah, I think that was coming. I think that was inevitable. But it just happened to come at the perfect time. Like you said, it wasn't guaranteed. And I love there was a lot of confusion. A lot of people saying, "Well, he's already got his money. You can't take that back." And that wasn't the case. They just had to they just had to exercise the option before March 14th. The money was never guaranteed. So, like you
Right? Yeah,
said,
yeah.
this is a $3 million deal for him. He needs to take it now. I know he's gotten a lot of, you talked about, the production didn't match the numbers, and you're right, even though it was because of an injury after during the Philadelphia game. And he made some big veteran plays late in games. So it's nothing against Torrey. I think he's a great guy, but that $5 million wasn't justifiable, like you said. But he
And
did it.
a lot of people have developed this crazy, irrational hatred for him over this, what is relatively in NFL terms,
Yeah.
not that big of a number. And he's a good locker room guy. I've never understood, and even with the restructure, people are still dogging the man. And I'm like, Jesus, who do you think you're going to find for less than $3 million that's better than Torrey Smith
Yeah,
right
especially with the way the wide receiver market's been reset.
now?
Though I
Exactly.
would argue, deep threat wise, I think Aldrick Robinson. We'll see how this all pans out, but I think he could be a big deep threat guy for us coming in, obviously in rotation. But there's so many receivers, not great receivers, not elite. Because I want you're kind of walking on eggshells with some Panthers fans when we talk about the wide receiver room. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but this
Deep,
is
though.
a
It's deep.
good depth chart for the wide receivers, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Um,
Yes, and it's still miles more talented than what Cam won with in 2015. So
right.
that's kind of the way I look at it. Cam's arm is healthy. With Christian McCaffrey in the backfield and this stable of wide receivers, we can absolutely win. I have no question about that.
Yep. And then rounding out the rest of Marty Hurney's offseason, we talked about it, releasing Captain Munnerlyn. These are just notables. I'm not going down a transaction list, guys. But, you know, bringing in Bruce Irvin, you talk about re-signing Eric Reed before the safety market just jumped through the roof. That was huge.
Yeah,
Signing
that
Matt,
was brilliant.
yeah, signing Matt Paradis. Um, you got Gerald McCoy. Who am I missing? I feel like I'm missing somebody.
That pretty much covers it. We just signed we signed Tampa Bay's best corner today.
Yeah, yeah, we did. That was
Adrian Ellis with a whopping PFF grade of 63.4.
Yeah, he was
Best corner on the team.
undrafted as well, and kind of sparked some teams' interest. And he actually did have his one interception came last year in week 13 against Cam Newton. So, I mean, he has
Then
that
Gerald
going for him.
McCoy got Cam.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm interested to say, I get that's probably depth. Obviously, that's a depth move. It's nothing major that's coming in. And look, depth is needed in that secondary. I still think it's going to be interesting to see how the nickel spot plays out. That's kind of a spot where he would probably be at. I think he's like 5'11", something like that. But actually, I think that's where he was lined up in the nickelback spot when he picked Cam off, if I'm not mistaken, when I saw that play. But yeah,
Yeah, I
depth
think
spot
you're
there.
right. And I think ultimately, I think what the team would prefer, yeah, obviously it's going to depend a lot on how Ross Cockrell rebounds from his injury. But
Yep.
I really think they'd like to see Bradbury and Cockrell man the outside spots and have Dante Jackson play the nickel. I think that's probably ideal for them. But we'll see. I mean, Dante obviously has earned an outside job if he wants it, but nickel corner is just as important now as any of the outside corner
Yeah,
spots.
you're right there. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's some hope that Cockrell becomes, is at least what he was for the Giants, which is a pretty good number 2 corner type.
And it's not
And
like you can't switch the guys if you have a speedster. I mean,
yeah,
it's not, Ross Cockrell was played both. Dante Jackson, I think, like you said, originally that's kind of where they hoped he was going to play. Injuries
right,
happened, and they had to move him outside, and it worked out great. And he's,
yeah,
obviously he did well there last year, but it's like you said, ideally we've heard him talk about wanting Dante at that nickel spot. Yeah, it depends on, like you said, how Cockrell does. And that's the name, again, that I've been hitting on all offseason that people just haven't been talking about. I mean, you talk about we need to figure out the nickel spot. We need to figure out some cornerback depth, and it's like, guys, we still have Ross Cockrell. He was really good until he broke his leg in camp. Like, this isn't the end of the world. And then Corn Elder was put in a bad situation in Seattle last year. He's supposed to be in a nickel spot, not the number 2 cornerback. So
right.
we'll see how all that pans out too. There's some decent depth there for nickel. And like I said, if you're facing just a flat out speedster on the outside, Ross and Dante can switch if they had to. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
yeah, I agree with you.
But yeah, I think that was, like you said, I think that was about all of them. You mentioned the Bucks, JV and Elliott coming to town. Don't know if Gerald McCoy had anything. I think I saw some people talking about that. Not sure. Gerald McCoy had anything to do with that. I just think they were looking for depth, and he was there and cheap. So
Yeah, pretty low level signing. I wouldn't think there was a whole lot of pull by Gerald McCoy happening here. Just that.
Yep. Now before we get going here shortly, I guess you didn't see the NFL memes post earlier today that I was talking to you about before the show, for the worst quarterback build in the NFL, put
Got it in
together.
front of me right now.
This was pretty funny, and of course, nothing football related was going to be with Cam Newton in this picture, but I just knew it was going to be like Cam Newton's shoulder or something stupid. But
Right.
yeah, Cam Newton's post game attire made the list with his little handkerchief around the neck here, and I can't even see. Is that like leopard print? What is that?
I mean, it looks like a little combination of all sorts of different animal prints and general sadness, I guess.
I'm pretty sure they actually photoshopped that off of one of his post game attires actually now because it
I mean, I halfway recognize it. I just don't know what it is at the moment. But I didn't know what it was when I saw it. So
I know they posted. I was like, "What the hell is this thing around?" Oh, it's Cam Newton's. It's Cam. Okay, that makes total sense. Got it.
But I think we can agree the best thing on that entire diagram is Philip Rivers' pullout.
It's fantastic. Fantastic. Oh my God!
I do feel like they missed an opportunity where they put RG3's knees. It should have just been Colin Kaepernick's knee.
Oh, yeah. Oh man. Yeah, they got RG3's knee with the brace on. Tom Brady's mobility, which I saw a lot of people arguing like Tom Brady does have mobility. He's good in the pocket, and it's like pocket presence.
Well, they already did Eli Manning for arm strength, so they couldn't do him twice.
Yeah. Well, Eli Manning's arm strength. Kyler Murray's height. Burn. Yeah, I guess that's fair. Nathan Peterman's decision making, but Kelvin Benjamin told everybody he was a great quarterback.
Oh yeah, couldn't wait to work with a real quarterback up in Buffalo. Sure helped his career.
I mean, bullseye emoji and everything. I mean,
Oh,
I thought this guy was the man, and then he just had a stellar MVP performance in the preseason game against the Panthers, and
oh
the
yeah.
the role was on for the Bills that season. So, um, yeah,
What a
Kirk Cousins' clutchness. Hmm.
yeah.
That yeah, that's he has no clutchness, so that's a good
You
point.
like that?
Yeah, exactly. Everybody, he puts up it's weird, man. He puts up the stats, but he is just absolutely chokes in the big games. It doesn't matter where he's at. You got Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Kyle Rudolph isn't great, but he's definitely not the worst tight end in the league.
Yeah.
And you can't put it together. And then shot at the Ravens fans here who were talking about being contenders, Lamar Jackson's accuracy. So
No. Yep. Yep.
yeah, so that was
I mean,
pretty.
that's I think that and that's another one where it's like you've already put a Buffalo quarterback out there, so you'd hate to go back to another Buffalo quarterback with Josh Allen, so you put Lamar Jackson instead.
Can't get enough Bills quarterback.
I mean,
Marcel,
really, this whole diagram could just be a Bills quarterback, right?
it really could, I guess. Um,
Yeah, just Nathan Peterman. Bam, done.
and you saw Marcel from the Charlotte Observer. Actually, the Bills are taking another Panther. Taking another
Oh, yeah.
Panther. Marcel, beat writer for the Charlotte Observer, going up there for the ESPN NFL Nation. Um, job for the Buffalo Bills. So congrats to him. That's big news for his personal career. He had some great content in his short stint here, coming from Clemson. So props to him. Best of luck there. And a little bit of other news: the Panthers are officially moving to Rock Hill. It's a done deal,
Yep.
Eric. It's happening. I don't think anybody ever doubted it. Um, again, I don't. I think we need to stress the stadium's not moving because I've still seen a couple people talk about this. And I thought this I actually had a whole show dedicated. I got Avery Wilkes from State Newspaper up here to talk about it and clear it up. He's been covering it from the start. This does not include Bank of America Stadium yet. I will
Yeah.
emphasize the yet because about 8 to 10 years down the road, there could be a stadium in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Um,
And I'd be shocked if that actually did happen. I
mm,
mean, it's at least going to be another decade. I feel like
yeah,
before they really start talking about it. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm happy about the move to Rock Hill. That means I'm probably going to have a shorter drive to training camp eventually.
same.
I still have to go through Charlotte traffic, so that sucks.
Yeah, especially right
But
now.
yeah, especially right now. But I guess overall, good for South Carolina. They were willing to let a $5.5 billion person get a tax cut and build a place in South Carolina.
Yeah, I know. I was sitting there thinking, like, they were talking about how happy they were to get the Panthers down there and this and that, and I'm like, well, I mean, dude, if North Carolina offered him, $200 million in tax breaks, he'd have been just as happy to stay. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Whoever offers the most incentives was going to get the deal, and I'm glad they did it. Look, it's 30, 45 minute drive, an hour. I know traffic can get crazy down there on I-77 for them. Um, but it's not terribly far away. I think it's going to be. It could be obviously it's closer for me for training camp and stuff. So I'm stoked about that, like you mentioned.
yeah,
Um, but they are anticipated to be done with it in 2022. I can tell you that's probably going to be pushed back maybe a year if I had to guess, because these kind of projects never go as planned due to weather, change orders, and all other kinds of things.
hmm
Um, and I thought this was kind of crazy, Eric, that Tepper actually said that Spartanburg will be involved in some shape or form between now and then. And he even mentioned a fan fest
uh,
potentially, and that's kind of that's just kind of weird to me. I know they've had training camp so they can handle that stuff and all, but it's just we've always
well,
talked about how Spartanburg is just not. I guess Rock Hill's not a big place either, but
the
fan
Rock
fests have
Hill
really
is growing.
grown.
I mean, like Rock Hill is a place that's on the up and up economically. It's growing, especially as a suburb of Charlotte. But I mean, I feel bad, and I think Tepper probably does too.
Yeah,
Um, Training camp is meaningful economically for Spartanburg, and an area that's struggling.
yeah,
And Wofford College, it's meaningful for Wofford College, a college that is struggling and could use that kind of help. So I feel bad for him, and I think Tepper made the wise move by not saying anything conclusive. It's in his best interest to keep as much of both states involved in everything the Panthers do as possible. And I think them not fully pulling out of Spartanburg is probably the right move from a PR standpoint,
Right.
because so many other companies, organizations, and stuff have pulled out of Spartanburg. And it's a fairly decent population center in South Carolina. It would leave a bad taste in some people's mouths.
Well, yeah, and
So,
we talked about this being done around 2022 is what they're hoping for, and they have to finish. The agreement was throughout this year anyway, so they had to
mhm,
finish this year. But you have several years before this project is done that you don't really have any. I mean, you have Bank of America. You're building a bubble. I mean, but
mhm.
you're not. I don't think you're trying to house. I think I did see Jordan Rodriguez mention something about possibly holding I don't know if she was talking about the bubble or Spartanburg still, but you still have to have a place there somewhere that's gonna hold Panthers training camp and like you mentioned Fan Fest, and I always thought Fan Fest at Bank of America Stadium was pretty cool. That
Yeah,
house has been packed the last few years. They can put on a lot of the fireworks shows. It's in Uptown. It's a great view, and they have all the light shows and stuff. So that seems to fit perfectly. I don't know how they would really be able to. I'm sure there's David Tepper's got plenty of money; he can figure it out, and he's hiring a lot of great people for that. But I thought the Fan Fest thing was interesting down in Spartanburg, but we'll see. We'll see what keeps rolling because I don't really know where else they would do training camp the next few years. I mean, maybe they find somewhere else in South Carolina or even North Carolina. I know
I
before he
mean,
mentioned about jumping it around.
yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a bad idea to jump it around. Quite frankly, I mean, that's kind of fits with the whole mantra. It wouldn't be a bad idea to move it around. I think.
Go to
I know
Raleigh.
I've said it. Well, Raleigh would be great. I've said it before. Now, obviously, it wouldn't be convenient for everybody, but let's let them have it up at Appalachian State University.
Oh
Some
no,
high altitude training,
I can't.
cool weather. Let me emphasize this: cool summer weather.
Okay, that is a good
And,
point. That is a
yeah,
fantastic point, actually. I will have
and
to.
the beloved and the campus of the best football team in North Carolina.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
I'll have to agree with you on the cool weather point, but Appalachian State is just too far for me. I can't do it. I know you're an App State guy,
It's
but
beautiful up there, man. And like I said, 80 degrees in the summer with a nice breeze.
well, that would be really sweet because it is blistering down in Spartanburg. It is not
Oh,
fun.
yeah.
It is,
It's still going to be blistering in Rock Hill.
yeah. Heck, Raleigh would be too, but
Yeah.
it would just be an hour and a half drive for me, so that's why I prefer going to Raleigh. But yeah. So I mean, that's that on that situation with
I
the
understand.
training camp. But anyway, I think that pretty much sums it up. Oh, we didn't really hit on the safety spot, so let's do that real quick. The more this goes on, I was kind of telling Edgar last week on the show. The more this goes on, and the more they talk about it, I feel less confident they're bringing in. And it, and I say this, but I think depth wise, and that depth worries me at safety with just Sean Golden. You got Colin Jones is still there, right? Or he goes somewhere else.
No, he's still there.
Okay.
He's the never dying Panther.
Yeah, somebody went somewhere. A special teams player. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, you have Colin Jones there, but that is not an ideal situation. So the depth worries me. But the more they talk about it, and they've built this front, the more I start to think maybe they're not gonna go hit a big free agent safety. And there's talk about Trey Boston wanting a lot of money, finally getting his fair share, which completely understandable. He's still sending out cryptic tweets.
Uh,
Still working out with
well,
former Panthers. I also saw something talking about Kirk Coleman would love to come back to Carolina. I don't know that that's really, you plausible, but
well, here's what I would say to both of them. It's June, guys. You haven't been signed yet. It's time to maybe start dialing back your salary expectations.
you're
If
gonna
that's
have
what's
to.
holding them back. You're going to have to.
Yeah.
Or you just won't have a place to play, and then you certainly won't get a good salary next year. So I think I do think that Trey Boston or Kurt Coleman could both be a possibility for us. But frankly, if they're being hard asses about it, I don't blame Marty Honey for not giving them what they want because they're going to still be available.
Yeah.
And beyond that, safety has just never been a priority for this team. and we've had incredible defenses with not great safety. So, Mitchell and Boston and Coleman, all of them were just average.
Yep.
That's what we've gotten used to. Coleman had that one great year when we had Steve Zav all together.
Yeah.
But he's never done it before, and he hasn't done it since. So chances are he's not that good. Chances are Trey Boston's not that good. I mean, it's just not going to be a priority. I would much rather have spent all of our remaining cap space on one Gerald McCoy than the three best safeties combined that are still available.
Yeah. I mean, I get that.
Yeah, I know people are worried about it, but it's not as big a worry to me as not having a left tackle, not having a pass rush,
Amen.
not having a guy like Gerald McCoy. I mean, those are so much more important things than a free safety.
Yeah, not having a speed bump is pretty nice. Hopefully Greg Little pans out, and all that works out. Look, I'll be completely honest. I would absolutely love to have Trey Boston. I mean, it would be would be a final piece to the defensive puzzle for this offseason. That would be insane, and it's not out of the question. I mean, they still have some room in the cap. But
there's still room, and he's still available. I mean, as long as those two things are true, there's still time.
But he's not going to get that big time money, so that's something he has to understand. And he's even mentioned he wants to spend time with his family and his newborn. That's fine. And if he wants to go for his big contract, I can respect that. Do it. But I don't think it ain't going to happen here. I don't believe. They've really built up this. Yeah. Well, at this point, you're right. Yeah. 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 At this point, it's not going to happen. So we'll see. We'll see if anything transpires with that. I know Jonathan Cyprian's out there, but he's been going a lot of places visiting. But like I said before, the more this carries on, the less I feel like they're actually going to bring somebody in. And, Rivera's been talking happy about Rashawn Golden and how last year he was really transitioning to more of the free safety and having to relearn that spot. So maybe that's what he wanted. Maybe they wanted him to get, a year under his belt, get some experience, learn the spot over before they put him back in there. Towards the end of the year, he got some, he got more snaps, obviously, with the season over. But we'll have to see how it all plays out. I mean, I don't know about that spot right now, but the more it goes on, the less I feel good about it.
And I'm all for Rashawn Golden getting the spot. Don't get me wrong. I'm just worried about him athletically. I just don't. When I look at his measurables, and granted, he may have gotten stronger and faster with a year in the NFL strength and conditioning program.
Right.
But coming out of college, he wasn't one of the more athletic prospects at safety or at corner. I watched him at Tennessee because Tennessee used to be my college football team, and he was all right. But when they moved, he was certainly not as effective at safety as he was at corner for them.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I know why they would want Rashawn Golden to work out, because he's a fourth round pick. You don't want to admit that a fourth round pick didn't work out, and there's still plenty of time for him. But I just hope that he's the right look. I just hope that he's the one that they can really actually help the team, as opposed to the guy who's just left standing.
And a lot of this led from them showing a lot of interest in draft prospects, top draft prospects. You're talking about Adderley, Darnell Savage, who ended up being a first round pick and kind of shocking a lot of us. I was down there and I didn't expect that at all, but he was a guy I had high on my board, hoping for like the second round pick, and extremely athletic. And like you said, that's really what all the kind of guys they had in the draft lined up. And people were complaining about getting Will Grier in the third round. You could have got a safety, but at that point, are you getting a starting safety? Maybe, but not likely. Who knows? You can't just sit here and say that. But
start at safety, but not somebody who's ready to start at safety.
Yeah, right. So
it's the third round. I mean, what do you want? I know we're about to talk about Grier here, but it was a good decision. He is one of two things. He is either a capable backup for Cam Newton until he gets to the point where he has to trade him or cut him, or he's Cam Newton's successor.
Yep.
Both of these things are good value at pick 100, and I stand by that.
Yeah, and look, the way, and this goes back to the point of the way HURN and this staff has put together this offseason with all these holes. If they make it through this whole offseason and they've addressed things like they have, and the safety spot, we're left with Rashawn Golden. I can live with that. I
Me
can
too.
absolutely live with that. And I think
I have
everybody else should
zero
too.
confidence that they would be able to fill all these needs. And somehow, not only have they filled them, they have filled them more than adequately, with the exception being safety. And if you ask me which position could afford to not be addressed, it would have been safety.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
ultimately, if the pass rush gets home, your safeties are bored.
Exactly. And that's what I've been preaching. You look back at some of the past great defenses we had. I always bring up 2013 as just one of the more recent ones where a lot of fans probably couldn't even name that secondary right now, because you had Greg Hardy, Charles Johnson down there wreaking havoc with that front seven and leading the NFL in sacks that year. That front seven led to those turnovers with like Mike Mitchell back there in the secondary and all those guys. That's what helped build that. So the fact that, if they hadn't addressed the defensive front the way that they have, and we were still having that problem at safety, maybe then it's a big issue to me. When you go out and you have Gerald McCoy, Dontari Poe, Kawan Short as your three-man front with Brian Burns, Shaq Thompson, Luke Kuechly, Mario Addison, Christian Miller, even in the nickel spot, you're looking at Ross Cockrell, Dante Jackson. You got James Bradbury on the other side as well, and Eric Reed at strong safety. I can live with an average free safety. So
6 first-round picks and 1 second-round pick on the front seven.
This is insane. Absolutely insane. And I
I
love
mean, if you told me that we could amass that talent heading into this offseason, I'd have laughed. I would have laughed. But somehow, some way, to Marty Hurney's credit, it happened. Maybe there's some luck, but this Gerald McCoy thing is certainly a big element of luck that we just so happen to be getting Matt Khalil off the books at just the right time for Gerald McCoy to become available. Guys like him don't typically become available in June.
And then you do all that, and you still get Cam a couple of pretty good weapons, and you still get him protection on the left at the left tackle spot after releasing Matt Khalil. And
it's a commendable job.
Do what?
I mean, it's just a commendable job. Bravo, I'm clapping. Marty Hurney, way to go. I'll say it right now. Well done.
I mean, that is the title of the show, Feel the HURN, because right now everybody in the Carolinas is feeling it if you're a Panthers fan. And like you said, bravo to them. I'm absolutely pumped. A guy responded on Twitter to my that offseason stuff I was talking about with Hurney, and he said, I mean, it's good, but it's not great, and this and that. He's like, you're just looking for optimism, and I'm like, how can you not be excited with what we were looking at going into this offseason and with what we have gathered? I'm not sitting here saying like this is a Super Bowl team, but I'm telling you, this defense could be one of the top 5 in the league if they're healthy, and that 3-4 front hybrid defense is working right. I feel like Brian Burns is going to be a stud. We could go on and on about this, but you have to be happy with what you have on paper right now, considering what you were going into 2019 with.
Was 2015 a Super Bowl season? Looking at paper in the preseason,
exactly. Well, you're right. No,
not a chance. Not a chance. So, I don't put any stock in that, man. And just like this is the one thing. There's a couple things. I'll give him a few things. But one of the major legacies that Dave Gettleman left behind was a single quote. And that is that you don't win the Super Bowl in June. The idea is to win it in January.
There you go. Some people ain't going to like that because they just don't like DG, but anyway.
They're not going to like that. But the man was correct in that one. Nobody wins the Super Bowl in the summer. They all win in the winter.
Well, Eric, I think that about does it tonight, man. You guys go ahead and like and follow right here on Facebook, YouTube. Subscribe if you're up there. Follow us along on Twitter at Black Blue Banter and I'm at Trip Morgan, not an I, but with a number 1. And you can also follow us in the podcast platform on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, all of that stuff, all your favorite podcast platforms. We're on all of it, and including Podcoin, the new app that pays you to listen to podcasts. I highly recommend it. I listen to all of my podcasts up there now for the ones that are available. The majority of them are. I'd be shocked if you find one that's not. But all of those are up there. Check that out. Eric, where can they find y'all over there at Cat Scratch Reader and your personal stuff?
Well, my personal Twitter handle is at Tater596. That's at TATER596. Cat Scratch Reader's Twitter handle is at Cat Scratch Reader without the final E before the R. And of course, you can get all the news on catscratchreader.com, part of the SB Nation blogging site. Big subsidiary of Vox Media. And I know they didn't have a good day today, but SB Nation's doing just fine. So everybody look us up for your Panthers news when you need it.
Sure, definitely good stuff over there. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. I apologize for my voice tonight. I probably should have led the show with this. I told Eric before we went live. My local college here is in the college baseball playoffs essentially, and they hosted a regional this weekend down here at East Carolina, and I went to all the games, and my voice is extremely kind of hoarse. You can hear the raspiness, so I apologize for that. But anyway, thank y'all for tuning in. I'm Trip Morgan for Black and Blue Banner. That's Eric Summers for Cat Scratch Reader. Y'all keep pounding, and we will see you next week. Hopefully, maybe with even more news. Every week I feel like it's just going to slow down, and bam, Marty HURN hits us with something. So we'll see what next week has in store.
Lines of Trey Boston signs. You know that has to happen, right?
Did we maybe we set the precursor for that? I don't know if that happens next week's going to be real fun.
Yeah.
Y'all take care. Keep pounding.
All right. Keep